きりしない気分は最高だけどびっくり世界がどう
Welcome to the Super Sentai Brothers. This is episode 27 of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger, the internet's best and only podcast dedicated to Denji Sentai Megaranger. Every week we watch an episode of the show and we share our thoughts with you, the listener. My name is Matt J. With me as always is my co-host and brother Dave. Dave, how you doing today?
Man, I'm doing well. Actually, I'm doing real well.
Nice, dude.
I mean,
nice.
Okay. Listen, all things considered, there are still obviously some problems that are ongoing. That's very true.
Sure.
But Matt, vaccines are rolling out.
Yes. They have been they have started to be distributed in the States as of this recording.
Yeah, and the Electoral College, as we are recording this, has gone and they went and did the good thing.
They just did the dang thing.
They did the dang... they did the good thing, Matt, because there was definitely a dang thing that theoretically they could have done, and they did not do that. They did the thing they were supposed to do, which was the good thing.
So now hopefully we can finally, in mid-December, put a stake in the heart of this election, cut off its head, and bury it in the backyard.
Holy cats, that would be great. So anyways...
Dave, I was thinking, and I know I just stepped on the toes of your, I'm sure, great transition, but I had a genuine thought today, and this is the first chance I've had to vocalize it, because, I live alone, and pandemic still. Speaking of pandemic, and speaking of vaccines, right? So, as of today, vaccines, there are people in America today who have gotten the first dose of the vaccine, right?
Yes.
People in Ohio, I believe.
I didn't know about that, but that is thrilling.
I remember, I think tomorrow was the projected date for it to start happening in Ohio. Now, I am a 36-year-old healthy man who is not a healthcare worker or an essential worker, and I am able to work from home pretty much indefinitely. So, I recognize the fact that, I am near the, maybe not the end of the line for the vaccine, but I'm near the end of the line. It's not coming,
right.
It's not rolling out to me personally for some time. But here's my question. It's not like they're gonna send me a letter, right? At what point do I just call the hospital every day and I'm like, hey, it's not today, I know, but is it next week? Is it next month? I have no actual idea what the, I know they're out there, and I know I want it, and those are the only two things I know, and I feel like there's a lot of steps in between, and I don't know how much of that
Matt,
is the government's responsibility to get it out, and how much of it is my responsibility to get in line somewhere.
First of all, there's the boring true answer to this question.
Which is that we don't know, and someone will tell me, I'm sure, as soon as it's available.
Yeah, the more interesting answer is what could be. Not what is, Matt, but what could be.
Are you suggesting that I put on old age makeup and sneak my way into a line?
Listen, you could old age makeup this.
Mm-hmm.
You could get into a stack with another very small person and put on some scrubs.
Okay.
And you could 3 kids at the movies this.
But it's 2 kids and I'm 2 of the kids.
But you're 2 of the kids, and then I don't know, a fake head. I'm not really sure. You could just pretend to be. You could become an essential worker.
Okay, now this is an interesting thought. I could get a job at a grocery store.
Get a part-time job at a grocery store.
And then I'm an essential worker.
Just for those. Then you've got that sweet Benny of getting the vaccine. Now, by doing that, you would be increasing your potential exposure to the virus.
Sure, flip side. That is the flip side. But, high risk, high reward, Dave.
Yeah, just a lot. Just so much.
On one hand, I might be able to get the vaccine up to a month or 2 earlier, if I'm at the back of the line right now and I could pop myself somewhere in the middle, those are real gains. Those are gains you can see. you know?
It's true. You also could see yourself just actually get the virus.
I could get the virus. And see, now, Dave, that's the flip side of this. I don't love that. So
It's not a perfect plan, I have to admit. What else could you do? You could find someone who has gotten the vaccine and maybe
take it from them.
Have them cough in your face. Maybe the vaccine is transferable by what? Maybe you would have to make out with this person.
Okay.
For a while.
Okay. Well, now,
I'm just spitballing, Matt. I'm not a medical professional.
yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I would be spitballing in that case, you know.
Hey.
Heyo. Yeah.
I'm just saying I think you have options.
Yeah, I gotta I mean, theoretically, I've got a couple of months to figure this out. And worst case scenario is that I don't figure it out, and in X number of months, my real plan, which is playing the long game, works out.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that you will just call the hospital and they will collect like 10 pieces of demographic information about you. And then they will say, all right, well, you're in the spreadsheet and we'll call
I'll see you in
Like,
June.
I'm going to guess that that's probably what it is, but who knows?
Yeah, it was just weird because today was the first day where, like, that was a real thought I could have.
Yeah, no, there's like a ray of hope on the horizon. It felt real nice.
You know what else feels real nice, Dave? Sitting down and watching episode 27 of Denji Sentai Megaranger. Not quite as good as getting a very good vaccine for global pandemic.
Very
that's been
close,
plaguing us.
though.
But I'll tell you, you can get this right now. This is coming at you.
Very close. Very
No
close,
wait.
I would say.
Until we listen to episode 27 of Denji Sentai Megaranger. It is called Kick Them About, the Demonic Choral of Death. Now, of course, Dave, before we get into this episode, and I know I said there was no waiting, but, you know, this is all part of it. Before we get into the episode, as always, we have our award-winning opening segment. Dave, shining in the heavens, there are 5 stars. What is our first star of the week?
Man, our first star of the week, it's Bun Vulcan. Welcome to Bun Vulcan. So anyways, Matt, I made another cake.
Nice, nice.
I did, yeah, thank you. It turned out well. I'm assuming it turned out very well. The reports are positive. I haven't tasted it yet. So it was our buddy Bill. It was his birthday as well. Bill's been on the show, not for a long time now, but he has been on the show. And I messaged his wife, and I said, hey, this seems like a weird question. You would think I would know this. Like, Bill and I have been really good friends for like almost 20 years now. But I said, hey, Bill is my friend that just goes like absolutely bonkers for like peanut butter chocolate stuff, right? And his wife is like, yes, that is definitely, like, you were remembering correctly. It is Bill. And I said, awesome. This was, remember, I talked the other week about an idea I had for peanut butter creme mousseline.
Yes, I do remember this.
I did, yeah. So, handful of things. I made a chocolate layer cake. I just used the Hershey's Perfectly Chocolate cake. It's my favorite chocolate cake recipe.
The one with the boiled water?
The one with the boiled water. I only make one addition to that, or one substitution. That cake, and you could just look it up. It's Hershey's Perfectly Chocolate cake. Here's what I do.
It's literally the chocolate cake recipe that is on like the
it's
cocoa
on the
container.
Yeah, but it's online too. And so it calls for half a cup of oil. And I don't use half a cup of oil, Matt, because based on the advice of my boy Jackie Pfeiffer, he says, listen, I know people put oil in cakes, but if you put an oil in a cake, he's like, I know why people do it. It's because it's nice for the texture. But if you do that, your cake is just going to taste like oil. He says, why would you use oil when you could just use clarified butter? It's going to do all the same things, and then your cake will taste like butter. And I was like, unsurprisingly, master pastry chef, that's a great point. So I do substitute clarified butter for oil, and it does make a better cake. So I made the Perfectly Chocolate cake. I made
Dave,
peanut butter creme mousseline.
Do you clarify your own butter, or do you just like buy a jar of ghee?
I just clarify my own butter. It's like way cheaper. Also, Well, I'll get to this in a second, actually. There's a second reason why it's worthwhile to clarify your own butter.
Ooh.
So I made peanut butter creme mousseline, which is 2 parts pastry cream, 1 part butter, and 1 part peanut butter with like some extra powdered sugar. It's killer. Yeah, it's just
nice.
amazing. And then I made peanut butter buttercream to like frost the cake, and then I just made ganache and I poured that sort of as like a drizzly thing, like a
sort of like
a warm blanket
hold
of
it all
ganache.
together.
Yeah. I told Bill to save me a piece. I'm very much looking forward to
sounds
eating
delicious.
it. Anyways, yeah, here's now theoretically you could do this with if you just bought ghee, but I clarify my own butter. Here's why. Our parents used to make toffee, and I have recently discovered, I'm sure, like anybody who's like been to culinary school who listens to this podcast is probably just like shouting at me for being a dummy and not knowing this already. But if you haven't been, maybe this will help you. Our parents used to make toffee, and I have recently discovered, Matt, that a lot of the flavor that I associate with toffee is not from the sugar, it's from the butter.
Aha.
Okay, so if you clarify your own butter, you can let it cook a little extra, and you don't want to let it go too long because it will burn. You let it cook a little extra, and you get like a toffee flavor in your clarified butter.
Aha.
So
Which
basically,
for something like this, it seems like it would be a nice compliment.
perfect. It's actually kind of great for everything. Like just pretty much anything can have a little bit of toffee flavor in it, and you're good. So I made this cake, and then I did a little sprinkle of sea salt on the top.
Ooh.
Because
Well,
you
gotta
zhuzh it up a little.
Now
no,
the only
also,
thing that would be better, Dave, is if you had the flaky salt.
if I had that, I did. Matt, I'm not gonna lie. I did regret that I did not have that fancy flaky salt.
Have I told you that I've transitioned to an almost entirely flaky salt lifestyle?
You haven't, but I support this move.
I keep regular salt for like baking. You know, like I don't like put flaky salt like in the dough when I'm making baguettes.
No, that makes sense.
But like I bought a nice salt cellar. This was like early on in the pandemic when I was just like, I need to.
I've seen this salt cellar. It's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
that wooden one, yeah?
It's like a ceramic with a hinged wooden top. But yeah, I just
I know the one.
bought flaky salt to put in it because it's not that much more expensive, and it makes me feel a little bit good every time I like do the little like crinkle of the salt on top of something.
Oh yeah, it's very satisfying
Oh, yeah.
tactile
So good.
experience. So anyways, man, that's this dope cake that I made. I'm looking forward to eating it. What is our second star of the week?
Hey folks, Matt J here. In a minute, you are going to hear me talk about how, despite all of its bugs and performance issues on release, I like playing Cyberpunk 2077, the video game. Now, I do want to say, before I get into all of that, that both Cyberpunk the genre and Cyberpunk 2077, the video game, have had very valid criticisms leveled against it in terms of both xenophobia and transphobia. And those things are not good. So, I just want to acknowledge those things at the top before we move into talking about, like, the video game mechanics of hacking in the future, which are good, but unrelated to the bad things. So, I am not the voice that you need to hear talk about those things, but I want you to know that those things are out there, and that I want to acknowledge them before we do the other stuff. Okay. Back to you, Matt. Dave, I've been playing a video game. You might have heard of it. 8 years ago when it was first announced. Dave, I pre-ordered Cyberpunk 2077. And I've been...
So Matt, first of all, you're correct. I have heard of this game. I have been hearing about it. Actually, it's been in the news cycle a lot recently.
Yeah. For a number
Some
of
good.
reasons. Some not
good,
great.
Some not great, though, which is disappointing to me. Because CD Projekt Red, that's kind of always been one of their things. Like, oh, we A, make great games, and B, like, we're not Bethesda. Like, when we put out a game, like, it's just out, and it's polished, and it's done, and it's great.
So, this is actually the first CD Projekt Red game I've ever played. So that had been my understanding. And then I fired it up, and I'm like, oh boy, wowzers, this is a different experience than I was looking forward to. And okay, so here is my take on Cyberpunk 2077. One, it is clearly flawed. Like, the textures, like, I'm playing it on an Xbox One. I'm not playing it on, like, a high-end PC. And so, like, there are obviously differences there. But, like, come on. Like, I know what an Xbox One game is supposed to look like a AAA Xbox One game, and this is not that. I had to adjust a bunch of settings to make it, like, not give me a headache to look at. And even then, for the first, like, hour and a half, my eyes just kept expecting things to, like, come into focus, and they weren't coming into focus, and it was kind of driving me insane. What I realized is that there are actually, like, the game, I think, assumes that you are running it on a higher-end software or hardware than what I've got. And it has built-in, like, cinematic blurring effects on the screen to, like, make it look like there's a film grain and, like, light sort of bends around the corners of the screen like it's, like, on the edge of something. Which, in theory, if you're running on a high-end PC, is very cool. If you are running on a Xbox One and a 4-year-old TV, is, like, not super good. So I turned off all that stuff. I kind of got used to how the game looks. And it took me a while to get into it. And, like I said, like, there are definitely glitches. It has frozen up on me a few times. Not critically, like, it will unfreeze eventually if I kind of... like, try to pause it and unpause it, or, like, crouch and uncrouch, or try to jump or something. Pull up a menu. That'll sort of, like, shake it free eventually. So I haven't had to, like...
nice.
So, you know, like, it hasn't been critical errors, but, like, obviously, there are a lot of problems with this game. But then I got to thinking about Cyberpunk 2020. And listener, I know, Dave, you have read the Cyberpunk 2020 books pretty extensively.
Oh, man, I own them. Not only do I own them, but I've actually read the new Cyberpunk game.
I heard
I'll talk about that in a minute.
There's like a brand new Cyberpunk game, right?
Oh, yeah, Cyberpunk Red. They've had a really, really, just an astonishingly long time to develop it, Matt. And I'm not sure what they did with that time. But I can tell you what they did not do with that time.
Was improve Cyberpunk?
Yeah, it certainly is. They just did, man, I don't know, maybe they learned a whole new hobby? Maybe they went on, like, a spiritual journey of self-discovery.
They just re-released Cyberpunk 2020 with new art?
Yeah, they sure did, man. What they did not do is turn that into a playable game.
Because the thing about Cyberpunk, the whole franchise, has always been, like, the world, like, the setting, the aesthetic of it is, like... very good. Okay.
That's
rad. I will say, before I say that I
want to live there any more than we already do.
Sure. Before I say that I love the aesthetic of Cyberpunk 2020/77/ all of the iterations of it, I want to acknowledge that, like, I have read a lot of articles about how there are, like, problematic aspects of, like, things at the nature of how the cyberpunk genre was developed and in the time that it was developed, sort of like xenophobic, anti-Asian, like, stuff that crept into it. I acknowledge that all of that stuff is true. I like that those articles have all been very good. That is not something that I am the person that you should probably listen to talk about. So I just want to say that before I say that, like, despite all of that stuff, like, I just love Cyberpunk stuff so much. And the only other Cyberpunk game that exists is Shadowrun. And Shadowrun is also all magic-y. And I don't like magic in my Cyberpunk. And so I always want Cyberpunk to be, like, the Cyberpunk game to be really good. And I always want to play in that world. And it never actually is the way that I want it to be. And so in that way... it really does feel like all the bugs and glitches and muddy textures and, like, you know,
ultimately,
like all of it. It's a great adaptation of the tabletop game because it's deeply broken.
They've really recreated the experience for you. That's astonishing.
Yeah, you throw a grenade, you have no idea where it's going to end up. In the tabletop game,
that's also true.
There was a table. If you threw any sort of explosive, you had to, like, roll on a chart to see which direction it exploded on impact.
That's the only chart that's easy to read because it reads like a clock.
Okay, I've talked about this for a long time. Dave, what is our third star of the week?
Well, third star of the week, man, is I'll keep it pretty tight. I have been just kind of in a spare few minutes here and there. I have been working on a new game. I know I have some other stuff in the works, but unfortunately with COVID, I've really been kind of locked out of getting in any significant playtesting on those games, either Go Sentai Heroes or Tulip Mania. But we were talking about new games to play. Remember last week we talked about that we actually are going to be playing Deadlands Hell on Earth. But the other idea that we had was that anytime a game comes up, I say, what if we played Exalted? And then people are like, no, I don't want to play Exalted.
Man, I want to play Exalted. I just don't want to play Exalted.
I think a lot of people feel that way, Matt. And I was like, well, one of the reasons I wonder is that Exalted is dope. It's extremely cool. It's a totally rad setting. Imagine if you somehow don't know anything about Exalted.
I think I think there's probably a lot of our listeners, Dave, who don't know anything about Exalted.
A lot of our listeners?
I'm just saying.
I think that... Okay, anyways,
we're not talking Vampire the Masquerade here.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So, if you've read Stormlight Archive, okay. Stormlight Archive, when I read Stormlight Archive, I was like, oh, Brandon Sanderson has clearly read a lot of Exalted. So if you've read the Stormlight Archive, but you don't know anything about Exalted, imagine that there's the Stormlight Archive, and then a mangaka read his book and was inspired by it and wrote a manga, and then an American got a hold of the manga and turned it into a Western anime in the style of Avatar: The Last Airbender or the new Voltron show, and that's kind of Exalted. Okay.
What could be clearer?
That
does actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah, if it were about semi-immortal demigods who served celestial deities, right? So that's Exalted. So it's super energetic, it's super high concept, it's really action oriented, and then, as producer Mark says, they straight up white wolfed it. It's this super action-oriented game, and they have shackled it to 600 pages of extremely obtuse rules. And so I said, what if you could take all those concepts...
Yeah, and also the worst thing is that it's 600 pages of very obtuse rules with no functioning index for the book.
Well, that's all right. If you've ever played a White Wolf game, I just assumed you knew that there wasn't a functioning index, although they have gotten better about it in recent years. Anyways, so I said, what if you could take all those concepts and really boil them down into a game that is fast and energetic and cinematic and easy to play? Powered by the Apocalypse System is my personal favorite, and so I am working on a project called Powered by the Unconquered Sun, and it's sort of a fan hack of Exalted into a Powered by the Apocalypse System, and I think I kind of cracked some stuff on it, and it's a lot of fun. I don't know, man. If you want to look at it, I guess you can tweet at Matt and he'll let me know. Or you could email ghostsentaheroes@gmail.com.
I was going to say, you've already got a pipeline for this.
And I'll shoot it out to you. It's entirely unfinished. It's a lot of just notes at this point, but I'm having fun with it, just kind of in my mental free time. What, Matt, is our fourth star of the week?
Dave, fourth star of the week. Let's move quickly. I had my office holiday party this week, which is normally
TM Fun Office. Gotcha.
# Fun Office. Normally a thing that we do, we rent out a thing downtown. There's not an open bar, but it's a kind of an open bar. And a bunch of food and door prizes and dancing. And there's either a band or a DJ or both some years.
That sounds like a party.
And it is. It's a fun party. I look forward to it every year. But obviously, that's not what was happening this year. And so I was kind of I've been wondering all year, what are they going to do? They can't do a party. And so what they did was actually pretty nice. And it was they said, everybody there's a grocery store right down the street from where the office is. And they sort of set something up with the grocery store. And they say, go to the store, go to the curbside pickup, tell them that you're there for the office food kit thing. And they'll just put the box in your trunk and you can go home. And when I got home, I opened up the box and it's full of like a bunch of groceries and a bottle of wine and some written instructions on how to make chicken pot pie. Or there was like a veggie option that I could have chosen.
Dude, that's cool.
Yeah, and like, like stuff for like to make a salad and like an apron with the company's logo on it. And then we all logged into what was essentially, it wasn't actually a Zoom call, but it was essentially a Zoom call where like we all watched a presentation of this woman showing us how to make chicken pot pie. And then like played trivia games and had like a everyone in their own homes but on Zoom dance party, which that part I did not stick around for much of. But it was one of those things where I was really expecting it to be like unbearably like cringy, but it was actually kind of nice.
Man, I don't have jokes about that.
Yeah,
that just sounds
it was
great.
Nice. Dave. I don't know.
How was the chicken pot pie?
It was pretty good. They suggested that I put sage in the crust, like mix it in with the, like the flour and the stuff.
Okay.
Which I did, and I get the idea. I think they sort of overdid it on the sage. If I ever do it again, I'll cut that pretty far back.
I love sage, but that is a danger.
Yeah, you can over sage. You can also over thyme.
Definitely. I think it's harder to overtime myself, but whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, the recipe was pretty good. It wasn't like we were not encouraged to make like a pie crust underneath, It was just like fill a thing and then put a crust on top.
And that, yeah.
I ended up having so much filling that I just used my smaller Dutch oven instead of a pie tin, because even with like 2 pie tins, it would not have worked. But
I think you chose the superior option anyways, Matt. Speaking of good options, what's our 5th star of the week?
Dave, 5th star of the week is, I don't normally buy myself things in December, but I was looking at my email today.
Yeah, you're not supposed to.
And it said, your Amazon shipment has shipped. I'm like, I don't recall ordering anything from Amazon that would be shipping to me right now, because I still need to do my Christmas shopping. We should probably talk about that off mic. And so I was like, what is this? And I remembered that I had bought myself what is essentially like it's like a stocking stuffer, but unofficially. And it's like this little...
I mean, you could put it in a stocking, so...
I guess. Basically, when I lived in France, these many years ago, I had a digital camera, and I had a couple of memory cards. And I got a bunch of those pictures put on a CD. The CD, broke in half somewhere, and I have basically not had access to any of my pictures from my year in France for years. But I still have the memory cards, and I still have the camera. And so for years, I'm like, I need to find the cables for this camera, because the camera theoretically still works, and I can plug it in and transfer stuff over to a computer. I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, man, it's 2020. Technology has definitely progressed since I was there in 2006/7. I'm just going to look up, easy ways to do this. And so there's just, a $9 gizmo that is nothing but, 5 different kinds of memory card port that is attached to, a USB drive. That you just, plug into your computer. And so, it is on its way. It will get here in, a week or two, because it had to come from some weird seller on Amazon. And I'm going to, actually get to... if those memory cards have, not corrupted or whatever, I will actually be able to, get my old pictures, at least some of them. And it's going to be really nice, I hope.
Dude, that's awesome.
And that, Dave, that is it for the 5 stars. We are going to take a break. We are going to watch episode 27 of Denji Sentai Megaranger. It is called Kick Them About, The Demonic Choral of Death. It was written by Junki Takegami. It was originally aired on August 24th, 1997. Of course, you can watch along with us either on the DVDs or at shoutfactory.com. And Megaranger rules, so you probably should. We will be right back. Okay, welcome back. We've just watched episode 27. It was good.
It was good.
Creepy in places.
It was good. Freaky. A lot of body horror in this one. Not my favorite.
There's definitely a part in this episode where Shun really rolls the dice on whether or not he understands what the monster has done to these people. We will get to that.
We'll get there in a second. Okay, so we open up this episode. We're on a beach, and there's some kids running. And it's an older sister and a younger brother. And the sister is like, dude, you have got to get in the water. We live on an island, and you can't swim. Like,
It's an embarrassment.
It's A, dangerous, and B, absurd and embarrassing. Like, come on, dude, you got to learn how to swim. The kid is freaking out, the brother. He's just like, he's just freaking out. He won't do it.
Right. He is scared of the water. She is sort of like backing into the water, and she's like, no, just come with me. Take my hand. Like, I will teach you now how to swim finally. And then, as I have it in my notes, sister tries to teach little brother how to swim, fails, and is promptly claimed by the sea.
Yeah, that would be accurate. It's the sea by way of a moving piece of coral, which I did think was an interesting take. Coral, which of course has many features, however, famously stationary.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, so we go from there. So the sister's gone, and the kid freaks out, and he feels bad about this, of course.
Yes.
So we go
as
to the
my
Rangers.
next note goes, his bravery fails, and she is lost beneath the waves.
Wow, you're getting very sort of like Victorian with this.
Yeah, well, my next note just says, Kenta has a level of neon pink going on that only ever existed in the 90s, so I'm trying to keep a nice balance here.
I was going to say, you balanced it out. There you go. So the Rangers are on their way to the beach. There is a completely unnecessary frame story here, which is that Mr. Uiwa, their teacher, is like with them, and they're like, are you sure about this? And he says, listen, my relatives own this beachside resort. They wanted me to come and like bring students. And so here you guys are. Like, if you have a problem with it, I guess you can go home. And they're like, no, this is cool. Except Shun, who is like, it's free and I therefore do not trust it.
Right. He says, and the only reason I have this written down is because it comes up again later. He says, there is nothing scarier than something free. Which, on one hand, like, is that a harsh thing to say? Sure. On the other hand, like, man, I have gotten some... Like, there is definitely some truth to that statement.
Yeah, he's not totally wrong. So they get we hear that there's a Nezare we go back to space, there's a Nezare reaction. They're trying to reach the Rangers. They can't reach them. Now, I'm not sure if they can't reach the Rangers because the signal comes through on Yusaku Hayakawa's computer. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if they can't reach the Rangers because he has, like, hijacked the signal.
Oh, I don't think he
rerouted it to his own computer.
I mean, listen, does he smile very slyly to himself when he hears Dr. Kubota say, why won't the Rangers answer my call? Yes, he does.
Now, I'm not sure if he did that or if he just sort of routed it so it goes to his computer also, which seems like the more likely option, but either way, it's not clear because they can't reach the Rangers.
My guess is that he's just listening in and that they are not answering their digitizers because they have him on silent because they're hanging out with Mr. Oiwa, which is literally the only reason to put him in this episode.
Yeah, okay, good point. So maybe it's not totally pointless.
Oh, so by the way, this is not a full class trip because, again, they are on summer vacation.
Oh, yeah.
It's just Mr. Oiwa and the 5 Mega Rangers.
Yeah, had it been everybody, I would have said the frame story was less pointless. It's yeah. So we go from there. It's the Rangers. They're on a boat towards getting over to this little island. Kenta gets seasick. They all make fun of him, and there's like coral floating in the background. So this is actually good. I assumed that when they said island, when she said like you live on an island, I was kind of thinking like Japan, but clearly they are. There's like it's
like a little island village.
It's an archipelago, right? So they're on like one of these little islands. So they arrive at this little island. They're like, Mr. Iwa says, "Here we are," and they're like, This is just a guest house. This is extremely uncool of you to have brought us here.
You have described this as a resort hotel, and it is a inn, maybe?
Maybe. That's very generous.
Mr. Oiwa is like, obviously he's never been here. He just got like a letter from a cousin. They never even specify what kind of relative. That is how little it matters. But he's like, my relative lives close to here. I'll try to call him, see what's up. He's like definitely trying to make this okay in some way, and he's not doing a super good job.
No, yeah, he definitely isn't, because especially, okay, so there's nobody there. They can't find anybody. They try to call some people. Nobody answers. The whole village is gone. They see a little piece of coral, and Chisato picks it up and is like, this is weird. Anyways, Mr. Uiwa he's so uninterested in everything that's happening. I think it's Koichiro says, like, well, I'll go try and find your relative. And Mr. O just says, cool, man, I am going to take a nap. And he just like rolls on inside and just lays down to take a nap
for the rest of the episode.
Well, not quite. He wakes up right at the end.
Yeah.
So
he's out. Kenta is like, okay, well, you were going to go look for his relative, but I came here to swim at the beach, and I have my bright pink, like, beach floaty. You know, like the big round beach floaty? An inner tube. That's the word I'm looking for. He's got a bright pink inner tube. He's like, I'm going to go to the beach and hang out. And Miku says, I am too. And Ko says, you two suck. He doesn't say that with his words, but he says it with his heart. He's like, you guys, we have problems. We need to find this person. Please, can you just try to be responsible? And predictably, Miku says yes and Kenta says no.
Yeah. So, Koichiro is looking around. Oh, sorry. So they're looking around. Shun and Miku, right? Yeah, Shun and Miku. They roll into a building. They see that like there's some meat on a grill.
It doesn't really matter. But they break up. It's Koichiro and Miku, and then Shun and Chisato.
Oh, that's right. That's right. My bad. So Shun and Chisato, like, they find an empty house and there's meat on a grill, which is relevant because clearly whatever's happened to this person happened like very recently. And Koichiro and Miku are like, this is really weird. Like, there should be fishing here. There's not, like, literally everybody's gone.
Yeah.
We go to Kenta. He's in the water. That water looks super duper cold. He does not look like he's having a good time.
Right. Well, okay, now it might not be that cold because remember, the original air date of this episode is August 24th. So, like, this is a summer episode.
Yeah, it just has the look of an ocean that's cold. You know, like the Lake Erie, you can go in the middle of summer and it's just kind of always cold, and it always sort of looks cold. You know what I mean? This looks like cold water. Anyways, so the kid is back. The kid is sort of rolling around. He sees more coral, tries to yell for Kenta. Nothing. Can't get his attention.
Okay, Kenta might be too cold in this moment, but Kenta is the sort of guy who commits to enjoying himself because he is talking to himself out loud alone, saying, man, I wish the others would have joined me swimming. This is so great.
Yeah, whether or not he is actually A, having a good time, or B, he's compelled to disobey.
Yes, he is compelled to disobey. So he is floating in the water, pretending to have a good time. The kid from earlier, who we will later find out is named Daichi,
yeah,
he sees Kenta floating, and he sees the coral sneaking up behind him.
We have not described this kid at all yet, and I just want to put it, this kid lives life on, like, level 11. Like, his facial expressions are so intense. And also, he obviously is like maybe like 8 or 9 years old, but he fully has the face of like a 36-year-old man.
He
like
does
not quite as
very
like
expressive
lined.
faced.
Yeah, I'm super into Daichi. This kid is great.
Megaranger, give us more Daichi. Although, you know what this show has done? This show has so many times given us characters that we fall in love with, and maybe even given them to us twice and then taken them away. Like, when was the last time you saw Tall Steve? I have it in my notes in a later part of this episode that I describe a character as some guy who was sitting at Tall Steve's desk. Because, like, that's where Tall Steve should be.
Usurpers.
Yeah. Or remember the Megaranger Bulk and Skull from episode, like, 6 or 7? And we were hoping they were going to be in the whole season?
Yes, not until you would reference them. Dude, oh, man, those guys were great.
Yeah, so Daichi definitely falls in that zone of, love this kid.
Now I'm just bummed out.
Would love to see more. Anyway, Kenta gets captured by a coral monster in the water and screams.
Yeah, it's not great.
Koichiro and Miku hear him screaming and come running. They find his neon pink inner tube, and it's covered in like a weird foam, which I did not notice as being weird because I thought it was just like sea foam.
Yeah, it is apparently like not.
Yeah, it's monster
not sea foam. It is some sort of specific, unusual foam, I guess.
Kenta hears Miku scream. He turns around. He sees her flip-flops and some foam. And at this point, I begin to wonder, is something that is using foam capturing people? Or is something turning people into foam? And I don't know which is worse, but I don't know which one it is from any sort of context cues yet.
Yeah, I don't like either version of that. Again, it isn't clear, so, who knows. But, so we go from there. We, Shun and Shisato see the kid, Daichi. They see him running, and they're like, oh, a person who's alive. They sort of chase him. Yeah, we gotta talk to this kid. So they chase him, and they get a little bit separated. This is actually very cool. They get a little bit separated, and Shisato meets up with the kid, and then she's like, hey, like, are you okay? And then some kune-kune arrive, and then Shun appears as Mega Blue.
Right.
And they do it so smoothly. It feels as though this has got, they've never mentioned this, but this feels like there's got to be like, they have a protocol for this. Like, oh, hey, if there's two of us, and we, you know what I mean? Like, you go there, and then I'll, like, duck into the phone booth, and I'll henshin, and then we'll, like, meet back up.
Yeah. Now, according to actions later in this episode, I have to assume that there is a secondary protocol that's like, if there's only one of us and it's a kid, then you can definitely transform in front of them.
Yeah, 100%. Do not worry about it. Like, we have our priorities, which I like.
Like, so, try to see if you can, like, throw some dust in their eye real quick, but otherwise, just, make it happen.
So there's a kune-kune fight. Ugande just like rolls up and sucker punches Mega Blue.
Yeah, which is no
Shisato.
Good.
Yeah. So and then Shisato gets hit by that foam shot.
Yeah, and we see now that the foam shot is something that is being spit out by Coral Nezare.
Yeah. Coral Nezare is he's like a Pirates of the Caribbean Black Pearl reject, is basically what's happening here.
Yeah, pretty much. He's just like a dude covered in multicolored coral. Like, he's not a bad monster design. But, like, it's hard to anthropomorphize coral, so he's just a guy with coral on him.
Yeah, there's nothing terribly interesting here. So we go from there to the Nezare dimension, and they explain their plan. And I feel like there's been a run of very good plans. And this plan is kind of stupid. Because here's the plan. They say, check it out. Here's what we can do. Like, even Guy Rail is confused by this plan. But they say, listen, here's what we're going to do. Coral Nezare is going to turn people into coral. And this, somehow, having too much coral, will...
Right, we're gonna fill the sea with this human-shaped coral because it's coral that's been transformed from humans into coral.
Yeah. And
this will, like, change the balance of the seas? Like, it'll choke out other marine life and make the planet
they
somehow
do not go into this
uninhabitable.
level of detail. You've already way thought this out more than they have. And then they just say, and then, like, the remaining humans will die, I guess. It's like, dude, if you have the ability to turn enough human beings into a sufficient biomass of coral to significantly impact the marine ecosystem of the entire planet Earth, it just seems like you're slow rolling it to then wait for ecological disaster to wipe out the humans for you, as opposed to just turning the rest of them into coral.
Weird move. I mean, fine, I guess, but, pretty weird move.
Yeah, well, I just, it was disappointing. I feel like the Nezare have come off a string of really excellent plans, and this one...
What is weird about this particular plan is that it's not clever or well thought out, but it is way more horrifying than a lot of their good plans.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It's extremely...
Because we get a visualization. There's like a painting of what the world will look like with an ocean full of human coral, and I'll tell you what, it does not look good.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're gonna get into this. So, we go from there to a cave where the Rangers all except Shun, are, and they're not coral. They are slowly turning into coral.
Yeah.
Which is
worse.
God, because just so much worse. So much worse because they're still definitely conscious, watching their bodies slowly turn to coral.
And as they are slowly turning to coral, like, they're having a lot of trouble moving around, right? Like, their mobility is being severely constrained.
Yeah. I have like particular body horror stuff about like hard, calciferous or rock-like skin stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And just I really got the shudders about, like, even at the, like, it's like not like amazing special effects, guys,
no,
but I did
not.
Definitely get the shivers about it.
At this point, is this where we begin to see the humans of this town stacked like cordwood having been turned into coral?
Yeah. Yes, we do.
But of
we
course,
we do definitely see that thing.
They're not actors and actresses who have been covered in coral. They are a bunch of mannequins that have been painted to look like they are humans that have been turned into coral. And that's definitely worse, right? Like, visually.
That's 100% worse. 100% worse. Definitely 100% worse. So, Matt had actually started to mention this before, and before we got into the discussion of just real deep body horror that is this spot in the episode, which is because their bodies are slowly turning into coral, they can't push their digitizers. They're, like, locked, and I don't know, they just, for some reason, won't work. And so Kenta sees Chisato and is like, oh, you still got a hand. Can you, like, crawl over here and hit my digitizer? So she's crawling, like, dragging her coral body, and, like, as she's reaching out to stretch, her hand turns into a big hunk of coral. Oh, no.
Pretty bad.
Pretty bad.
We cut away. Shun is unconscious.
Yep.
Like, on the beach. Daichi finds him, like, collects some water in a wide leaf and uses it to, like,
it's very cool. It's some real druid stuff.
Yeah, like, pour some water into his mouth to, like, revive him. I hope it's not ocean water.
Yeah.
In any case, Shun wakes up and he's like, yes, small child, thank you for your help. Now, the kid thinks that everything that's happening here is his fault. And at this point, I'm like, that's weird. Do you think it's your fault because you weren't able to save your sister, and, like, that was the beginning of all this, and so you have, like, a vague, like, creeping, like, guilt about that's making you guilty about everything? And then he says, no, I saw a monster take my sister, and I could have told the town about it, but then they would have known that I failed to save her, and I was like too scared and embarrassed to admit that. And so they weren't prepared for the monster, and it took them all. And I'm like, oh, well, actually, no, that makes a lot of sense why you would feel guilty about that.
I was going to say, man, yeah, he would feel guilty. But actually, I think that's a fantastic piece of writing, because that is a very, very 9-year-old reaction. Like, I was afraid of getting in trouble for one thing, so I let another thing happen that was way worse because I didn't want anyone to yell at me.
I mean, dude, that's an understandable 9-year-old thing. That's an understandable 36-year-old thing, I say, as someone who is 36.
Yeah, I actually was just going to say.
Like, dude, I get it.
A lot of trouble about that, nationally.
Sure.
So Shun's like, listen, dude, you're 9, like, it's cool, like, it's fine, all right? The goal now is we just have to move forward from this. So, the Kune arrive.
Shun does say a nice thing, because the kid says, like, I suck and I have no bravery. He doesn't say I suck. He says, like, I
haven't found it, or I've
like,
lost
I'm
my
bad.
bravery.
He's like, I am bad and I have no bravery. And Shun is like, you are good and everyone has bravery.
Oh, man. Well, he's a Blue Ranger, right?
Yeah, dude.
Classic Blue Ranger statement. So,
one thing that has not been found, even if bravery has begun to be found, a thing that is not found is Shun's digitizer, because it has fallen off of his wrist.
So which would be more or less okay, except the Kune are here right now, and Shun like suddenly realizes this. He's like, "Hey, have you seen a bracelet? It's very important." And the kid's like, "I have not." And Shun's like, "Well, you run, and I'm just gonna fight these monsters until you can get out of here."
Yeah.
So they're fighting,
and
so the kid doesn't run.
Yeah, I really thought at this moment that Shun was like running to draw them off. Like, yes, you follow me, and then the kid can run the other way. No, Shun just ran in and started like arm dragging these fools.
Yeah, it's real good. Shun is very cool in this moment. Now the kid doesn't run away. He just starts like looking around, and he does see the digitizer. As he is seeing it and finding it, Shun is getting like dragged out into the ocean by the Kune.
Yeah.
And
so
they're
like dogpiling him to like drag him down in the water. It's a really intense game of sharks and minnows is what it is.
Yeah. Oh man, Sharks and Minnows is such a fun game.
Sharks and Minnows is a really fun game if you are a strong swimmer. Otherwise, I'm sure it's a terrifying game.
Yeah, I'm sure it is a terrifying game. Also, in retrospect, seems like a very dangerous game.
Okay, we should briefly explain Sharks and Minnows, because not everybody...
Yeah, man. Very briefly, Sharks and Minnows is a game you play if you're on swim team, and there's one shark at the beginning and a whole bunch of minnows. And if you're underwater, then the shark can't tag you. And the goal of the shark is to turn everybody into a shark, right? So the shark can only tag you if you are above water. So what happens is you get all the younger kids first, and then they're all sharks, and all the big kids just like dive straight to the bottom of the pool.
This was like the community swim team. So this was like kids through high schoolers, right?
Yeah. And you play it in the deep end. It's just like 13 or 14 feet deep. And so then what happens is that the strong swimmers just dive straight to the bottom of the pool, swim all the way across on one breath, and then come up the other side. So if you want to win the game, what you have to do is like swim down to the bottom of the pool and like wrestle people up to the surface,
right,
while underwater.
And necessarily the people who are stronger swimmers than you, because if you were a stronger swimmer than them, you wouldn't be a minnow yet.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, you wouldn't be a shark yet. You would still be a minnow.
Yeah, so you just got like a bunch of people underwater wrestling, and everyone's holding their breath. Nothing bad ever happened, but in retrospect, it does seem like a dangerous game.
Yeah, I mean, it was the 90s, man.
So anyways, Shun is wrestling these Kune. It's a great scene. It's very cool choreography. Just water splashing everyone you're fighting. And the kid... he's got the digitizer and he's trying to get out, but of course they're out in the ocean and he's terrified of the ocean. And in this moment, he finds his bravery and he dives into the ocean. He super intense look on his face is clawing his way out through the water because he doesn't know how to swim.
He's a bad swimmer, and he basically is swimming with one hand because he's holding a digitizer.
Oh, yeah. And so he finally, as Shun is being, like, dragged beneath the waves, like, the kid throws the digitizer, he, like, grabs it, his hand sinks down, the kid sinks down into the water, and then Mega Blue leaps out of the water, holding the kid onto dry land.
We get an amazing, like, we don't see the henshin, it's an underwater henshin, but there's like an explosion of light up through the water as he erupts from it. Extremely good. We've seen a lot of henshin through fire before, but I don't remember ever having seen it through water, and this is great.
Yeah, it's just a really good moment, man. Like Mega Blue saving kids. I mean, all the Rangers do, but Mega Blue Rangers particularly save kids. So,
yeah,
and the kid's like, hey, so it's definitely you, right, bud? And he's like, oh, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, it is.
And then a Kunekune hops out of the water. He tries to attack Shun. Shun grabs him, throws him down on the rocks, pulls out his gun, puts it into Kunekune's face, and is like, you're going to take me to your base right now. And it's extremely raw, and I love it. Shun is not messing around.
So they go, and they find everybody in the cave, and Shun, here's the risk that Matt was talking about.
Yeah.
Shun guesses, correctly, that this has not, in fact, turned them into coral, but has simply encased them in coral, which is somehow worse, I think.
It is somehow worse, except for the fact that if it were not true, then Shun would have murdered these people by shattering their new coral bodies instead of freeing them by shooting off the coral that is surrounding their bodies. And that would have been very bad.
Yeah. So thankfully they don't do that. Or like their coral bodies aren't shattered. He does blast them off, and then everybody's cool.
Yeah, and then he is also able to shoot the coral off of the limbs of his friends, and they are all free. And now they can henshin.
Yeah. So they all henshin. They go out to fight Coral Nezare. He does Blue does like a tomahawk tornado thing, which I feel like is kind of new.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. They try to blast him, and he is able to like shoot a coral spray that like blocks the blast. And Shun does like an analysis with his mega powers, and he's like, "There's 0.3 seconds between when he opens his mouth and when that sperm comes out, so just shoot him right in the mouth with your blaster." In that 0.3 seconds, and we'll be fine. So they do that exact thing, and it works.
Yeah,
it works.
It goes down. At this point, there is a weird interlude with Mega Silver, because Ugande is watching the fight, and he's like, "How dare you do that to Coral Nezare?" And he says it in the sort of way that like Coral Nezare was his best friend. And he's very, like, personally offended that they've killed him. And he starts to move towards joining the fight. And then all of a sudden, Mega Silver is there. And the two square off. And it looks like Mega Silver has, like, completely misjudged the danger of the situation. Like, they get into a fight. And, like, immediately Mega Silver is, like, on his back, on the ground. Ugande is standing on him, about to kill him. And
Uganda's like, "Yeah, jerk, I got you."
And he what happens is that he has summoned his flying motorcycle to, like, at that moment, just crash directly into Ugande and knock him into the ocean, which is very good.
Yeah, he's like, "I was actually waiting for you to knock me on the ground so I could do this." Boom, and he just straight up Green Goblins that dude.
Which is good. I like that they are finding ways to make Yusaku.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they are finding ways to make him work within his time limit. You know? And I'm also now understanding why the Silver Ranger in the equivalent Power Ranger character was not in a ton of that show. Because, like, he was in it, but, like, he did not do a lot as the Silver Ranger. He would sort of, like, come and go pretty quickly. And I don't believe that in that show there was ever, like, an actual hard limit on things. So I'm glad that it works, and I'm glad that I've also, like, resolved that mystery for myself.
Yeah, no, it's a tight piece of writing. So there's a giant fight. Coral Nezare has like a cool coral spear now that he didn't have before, and then also he could like shoot tentacle. Now the tentacles thing, he like shoots out these 2 tentacles that wraps him up. That actually kind of makes sense because coral do actually do that. When they're like the fleshy parts of the coral do actually do kind of a similar thing to that.
Yeah, although I swear I could have written they go big. When I saw that it wasn't just Super Galaxy Mega showing up, that it was only Galaxy Mega at first, I'm like, oh, well, then he's going to get caught up in tendrils. And then they're going to have to call Delta Mega, and then they're going to have to combine. Yeah,
I would say overall, I really like Megaranger. The giant fights
they're lacking.
Overall, this series, yeah, they do very much sort of seem like an afterthought.
Series, I think we had a lot of good things to say about them. Like in the first, 5 to 8 episodes, there was a lot of really cool stuff. They have fallen into, which, I mean, honestly, this happens every season. They've fallen kind of into being formula. And then they become interesting again when they have to be narratively.
So, that's pretty much it. Like, he goes down, and they're like, hooray. Then, when he dies, we flash over to Mr. Uiwa, and he's like, oh, was there an earthquake? He has just now woken up from his nap.
Mm-hmm. Very briefly, and then falls right back asleep.
And then he just, lays right back down. Love this dude. He's as a teacher, the man is an icon. Here's why. Because he has somehow figured out how to make like this his job and not get fired. Right?
I dig it, man.
Yeah, it's not admirable as an educator, but as a life model, I would say. So, anyways, our last scene is young Daichi learning to swim, and he does not let up with the intensity of his facial expressions.
Yeah, he gets in the water, like Kenta is helping him in the water, and he's like, go over there to where Shun and your sister are, and he's paddling, and he's paddling so hard, and his face is very intense, and he finally gets over there, and they're like, yes, you did it, and his sister says, when did you learn how to swim? And Daichi says, Mega Blue taught me to swim, and he looks up directly at Shun, and he gives him a huge wink, and Shun looks back down at him and gives him a huge wink, and then, weirdly, his sister does not say, out loud, oh, so you all are the Megarangers?
Yeah.
You 5 strangers who came to town and are friends with my brother, who was the only person who wasn't turned to coral while the Megarangers were saving us, and are winking at him about swimming? Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. So,
but it's a great episode.
Yeah, it is. So, Matt, that is it for this episode.
Yes, Dave, but it's not the end of our episode, because first we need to determine where Coral Nezare lands in the Creature Royale. Now, specifically, in case you did not listen to last week's episode, we have broken things out, because the Grand Creature Royale got a little unwieldy, so now we are comparing specifically monsters within a particular season. So this is the Megaranger bracket of the Creature Royale.
Yep. So, okay. I like he's a non-character. Coral Nezare has 0 personality.
Yes, and that hurts him.
And that does obviously hurt him. I mean, honestly, I think it really puts him like pretty low near the bottom. Even Buffalo Nezare had some sort of something. So I feel like he's down in like Rhino, Moray, Elephant, Stingray, Scorpion. He's better than Scorpion Nezare. He's better than Stingray Nezare.
I mean, that's like the bottom of the list, though. So I'm just saying. I think he's better than Rhino Nezare, because Rhino Nezare's big move was run at you and hit with head, right?
Yes. Not brilliant.
And Coral Nezare has like this weird body horror thing going on where like he snatches people out of the sea and transforms them into coral.
Snatching people out of the sea is a strong move as a monster thing goes, definitely.
Buffalo Nezare had the thing where he was able to like take down the data of how they were defeating him and then use that to feed into the master version of Buffalo Nezare. And that's pretty cool.
I think Buffalo Nezare is cooler, but I think Coral Nezare is right underneath him.
Okay, because, I think he probably comes in above Mole Nezare, right? Because, like, honestly...
Yeah, for sure.
I don't have a lot of great memories of what Mole Nezare was like. And that was not that long ago, because it was this season.
So I would say Coral Nezare, is the new spot number 15.
Right on. Well, then that...
Out of 21.
Yeah, but, it's only 15 from the top. Maybe he'll stay there. If he does, then he's in the top half. Top third even. Congratulations. Good for you. Probably not going to happen, but we'll see. That's the whole point, Dave, of the Creature Royale. And that is going to do it for another episode of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger. Before we finish up here, I'd like to remind you that you can email the show at supersentaibrothers@gmail.com if you want to get any updates on future episodes or check out what we're talking about on Twitter. We are at Super Sentai Bros. Dave, if the good people want to get in touch with you to get any of your good tabletop role-playing game playtests, how would they do that?
If you just email me at GoSentaiHeroes, all one word, at gmail.com. I will try to remember to check that email address with a little more frequency, and I will get out any playtests and stuff. And the playtests are great, and I've had a handful of people write me back and say, "Hey, I was able to play it," and here's some feedback, and that's awesome to hear. If you're interested, let me know.
Cool. And if you're interested in the show, please remember that shining in the iTunes review section, there are 5 stars. Please rate, review, subscribe on iTunes. That's what's going to help new people find the show. Tell a friend. Just do it. It's the holiday season. Give them the gift of the Super Sentai Brothers. The Super Sentai Brothers are a production of Retrograde Orbit Radio. To listen to any of the other great Retrograde Orbit Radio shows, you can find them all at retrogradeorbitradio.com. Once again, we are the Super Sentai Brothers. I'm Matt.
I'm Dave.
And we'll see you next week for the greatest show on Earth. Mark, sorry for the last minute edit.